it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a saviour, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. The date today is the 14th of May, 2010. It is 8 p.m. British Standard Time. It is 3 p.m. EST. It is potentially other times in other places. Shocking, I know. Wonderful, is it not? This is Blue Please, and welcome to the show. What have I got coming up in the show today? So little. Oh, dear. Dear. Why again would we have such nonsense going on? There's so little. I mean, not only has MMO Champion had to take down basically fucking everything, but we've got a situation where the Ruby Sanctum PTR isn't working, so no one can even give us any feedback on that either. God. Oh, it's terrible. I'm supposed to produce an entertaining show every week. That's kind of my thing. Little bit difficult, I must say, when nothing is happening. I'll tell you what actually happened, though. No, there is something that did happen that disturbs me somewhat. Of course, in the whole move over to the other server, we didn't get enough people to form the guild because a bunch of people decided that they'd had enough of WoW and that the raiding was boring, and I can't say that I honestly blame or disagree with them. It's really silly. So now we've got a situation whereby the guild is lacking members. Let me just put it that way. Not so good. I've got a few ideas as to how to sort that out, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the show, and I would like to know exactly what you do when your guild is totally burned out on content. I will tell you what I'm planning on doing a little bit later on. Also, the Ruby Sanctum. There is literally nothing going on with it, because we have no idea what it's supposed to be. Although everything I've seen of it thus far indicates that it's a reskinned Obsidian Sanctum with almost identical setup, maybe with a little bit of Hydral mixed in there. So, as opposed to the 4 bosses that you thought you were getting, actually you're just getting 1. Yes, just the 1 boss. Isn't it wonderful? No, not really. Oh, God, why? It's difficult to keep doing the show at this point, I must say. I'm trying to find entertainment in places. I'm trying to find just a little bit of hope and maybe a little bit of information to talk about. But I tell you what, the leaks from the alpha have been unreliable. MMO Champion, the usual great source for that, has been forced not to do it. WoW.com, who's usually absolutely fantastic about being gloriously hypocritical regarding leaks, saying, "Oh, no, we don't leak, we comply with everything. Here's a link to someone that leaks. Tee-hee, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more." No, even they have been utterly worthless thus far. There's been a little bit of information about professions today, which, to be honest, doesn't really cover an awful lot, other than a little bit of indication for me. A few years back, in fact, I suggested the way to fix low-level crafting was to provide some random stats and provide a little bit of dynamism, assuming that's a real word. If it's not, it is now. So, I suggested that a long time ago, many years ago, and now they finally put it in there. Okay, cool, excellent. So that's going to be coming in Cataclysm. Otherwise, not an awful lot. I'm just looking at some screenshots, actually, that have just this very second gone up on MMO Champion. It's 6 screenshots of the PTR, and it looks really, really, really similar to Obsidian Sanctum. It's even got the same mobs in the packs. Yes, indeed. They're called something slightly different. They're called the Char Scale, but they are the same models. So, it's not really all that exciting, is it? I mean, they've been using those models since vanilla, let's be honest, and they've never had an update. And it's blindingly obvious in comparison to the new stuff. And for God's sake, one of the bosses is just one of the chromatic guards from Blackwing Lair, reskinned again. How are you supposed to get enthused about that nonsense? Oh look, it's a Drake, the same Drake model as they've always used, good God. There is literally nothing new in that entire instance from what I can tell. It's pretty disgraceful. If you want to go and have a look at it, it's MMO Champion, mmo-champion.com. You can have a look at the somewhat uninspiring screenshots, to say the least. Indeed. Well, I'd love to give you some experience from that, but since they only just went up, and you cannot queue for the PTR. Indeed, from the very start of them launching it, there was a 3-day queue, and it worked for maybe about 5 minutes, so... The wonders of the PTR, ladies and gentlemen. How the hell are you supposed to get any information from that? Well, otherwise, there's not an awful lot to talk about with that, so I suppose we'd better start with something like this.
Mail time!
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it is mail time. That's the time where we read the mail. Magical, mystical, and totally unexpected. Okay, so I'm going to keep the name of this guy out because it's kind of incriminating, to say the least. It is a fairly interesting point, so we're going to have a look at it and see what's going on. Okay, I'm a member of this guild on this server, and needless to say, I'm not going to tell people that because this is kind of silly. Anyway, when I got accepted into this guild, I rolled a priest with my RL name. And since I was a coder, I decided to pick up speed hacking. I wrote the program myself to help me level and get money from mining faster. I feel justified in using my own hacking program to quickly make levels and cash, because Blizzard now sells levels, RAF, and gold, TRH, which can be easily sold in-game for a few thousand gold. And they've always said they would not provide an in-game boost for real money, which both of these things now provide. Or better yet, they always said they would not include an exclusive in-game bonus for money, which affects gameplay, and both of those things do. So the real question is, in my pursuit to recreate a rich, geared, and well-enjoyed 80 on Arthas, is it wrong for me to speed hack, since the alternative is giving Blizzard $25 or buying gold with TRH? Personally, I don't think it's wrong for me to have fast leveling experiences for free, since other people can just buy it for money. Please keep my name private, blah blah blah. Well, yes, of course. Well, I wasn't actually aware that you could sell that retarded horse for cash in-game. I suppose it's possible, honestly. I don't know, is that one of the things you can sell? Because I know you can sell the loot cards, yes, from the TCG. I know you can do that. I wasn't aware you could sell TRH. Which would be interesting if you could, and yes, that is actually buying gold. I mean, there's not a question about that. As regards to whether or not it's right to speed hack, well, that's interesting, isn't it? It's a rather thorny subject. Well, what's the answer? It's difficult. It's not something I've really considered before. I've never, ever thought of hacking. I must admit, I've thought of buying an account at some point. I've thought of buying a character, but I decided it really wasn't worth the hassle. I mean, for one thing, it would take me ages to learn a new class that I hadn't played before when I wasn't experienced with leveling it up. So, to me, it seemed impractical. It also seemed like it would be a little bit of a kick in the teeth to anyone that actually grouped with me, because I would suck, invariably. Oh, look, here's a bunch of abilities I've never seen before in my life, having almost exclusively played a mage since launch. As regards to speed leveling and speed hacking, well, you can always say that Blizzard doesn't like it and it's against the rules, therefore it's wrong. But we know that that's not really the case, is it? That's a set of arbitrary rules put in place for whatever reason. To keep fairness and things like that. The question is, I suppose, does speed hacking hurt anyone else? Is speed hacking a victimless crime? As far as I'm aware, mostly it is. And there's a few things I assume you could do with speed hacking. For instance, you could mine nodes before the people, you could steal nodes, you could get out of PvP a lot easier. I mean, what exactly do you mean by speed hacking? Are you talking along the lines of moving faster, doing damage faster, what? I assume it's moving faster, in which case I suppose that does give you a little bit of an advantage in terms of leveling, but yeah, I mean, it's not a huge advantage, is it? It's certainly not the same advantage as 3 times experience from the setup with the Recruit a Friend. Now, I understand that people want to get something for nothing, and a lot of people also want to be able to level up alts quicker. To me, it seems like they should provide a service that is a little bit less cumbersome than Recruit a Friend. I mean, Recruit a Friend is a very nudge-nudge, wink-wink kind of service. It's like, oh, this is purely for recruiting new friends, but we know in the long run that a lot of you are going to use it for multi-boxing and things like that. But we're not going to officially acknowledge that. We're not going to advertise that as a feature. We're just going to let you assume it. You know, we're not going to tell you about it. We know that it's happening, but we're not going to do anything with it. Yeah. It's odd, isn't it? Now, as regards to whether or not it's right to do it, again, thorny subject, difficult to call. I view any kind of cheating as wrong in principle. But I must say, in terms of lesser of two evils, I would much, much rather you speed hack in order to get gold and get levels quicker than pay someone else to power level for you, especially if it happens to be a Chinese gold farming company. I mean, in this situation, nobody's getting any money. The speed hacking. Assuming you're not buying some kind of speed hacking tool, in which case you're an idiot, it's probably loaded with Trojans. But since you're a programmer, one must assume you've made it yourself. I personally don't have a massive problem with that. Really. I mean, on what grounds? That's the question. Does it give you an advantage, an unfair advantage over people in a competitive environment? I mean, if you were using it in PvP, for instance, that's just cheating. I mean, pure and simple. There is no justification for that nonsense. If you are using it simply to level, on the other hand, then yeah, you are talking about something that's effectively a victimless crime. Something that does not unduly disadvantage other people. I think that's the most important thing. That's the acid test to me. Yeah, it's against the rules. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I would never do it. Because to me, if it's not worth doing right, then it's not worth doing at all. However, I can understand why some people would want to do it, and I can also understand why some people would not want to get involved in Recruit a Friend. And indeed, a lot of people don't have the option. I mean, think about it. We're talking about a system which is not available in a bunch of European countries because of legality issues within that country. So, in reality, you have 2 options for leveling in a country that is not allowed to use Recruit a Friend. You can get power leveling if you want quicker leveling, or you can use a speed hack. I would certainly much rather use a speed hack. I'm not saying either of them are right, but I can understand why you want to do it. That said, of course, this guy's from the US, so Recruit a Friend is available. To be honest, Recruit a Friend is a better system overall. I mean, it is a good, solid, well-thought-out system that gives appropriate rewards and gives a bunch of really cool benefits, and it's way more fun to level with a friend. No doubt about it. Oh, it's probably way more fun to multi-box, honestly. But I suppose if you want a speed hack and all you're using it for is leveling, there's nothing to stop you. But then again, how could you ever trust anyone to just use it for leveling? Honestly. At the point, ladies and gents, when it starts to unduly disadvantage any other player, no matter how small, then as far as I'm concerned, it can go to hell. But that's my opinion on it. I'm not going to shout down that kind of behavior. Just simply on principle with no real practical reasoning, other than Blizzard says no. Blizzard says no is not a good enough reason. For God's sake, I got permabanned twice from the forums, specifically because I did not agree with the Blizzard says no rule. So, there you go. Right, let's read another email before the break, ladies and gents. Dear host of shows!
You dare look upon the host of souls! I shall devour you all!
Indeed. As you know, Blizzard in the past has removed the possibility to get mounts such as the Plagued Proto-Drake and Armani Warbear. Currently, the Old War mounts are still in the game. While the removal has been constantly called for by Blizzard since the beginning of the Argent tournament, the whining of scrubs has kept the mount within the game. Since Blizzard has yet to remove the mounts, do you think they record their original plan of removing the achievement mounts to calm the swarms of scrubs, or are they building up time to give a better reason for removing them? Also, do you think Blizzard will remove the chance to get the Red Proto-Drake at the launch of Kata? Okay, where the hell does the Red Proto-Drake come from again? I can't honestly remember. I'm gonna have to find out now. Red Proto-Drake. Spell. Range the Red Proto-Drake. Where does it come from? Some kind of achievement, I imagine. A Dungeons and... Glory of the Hero. Okay. What the hell's Glory of the Hero again? I don't pay any attention to this kind of nonsense. What does it do? Oh, you've got to do a whole bunch of stuff, and most of that is dungeons. Right, okay. Well, to be honest, is Proto-Drake a 310 speed mount? Because bear in mind that you're going to get this as training. 310 is going to be a trainable thing, so it becomes less special at that point. As far as the Old War mounts go, I think they should have gone already, honestly. I mean, Old War can be stomped into the ground with a bunch of overgeared people, even if it does require you to do some extremely tricky things. Those should have gone ages ago, there's really no doubt about that. There was plenty of time for people to get it if they were going to get it. I mean, to me, 6 months is a fair window. If you're not going to get it in 6 months, then you're not going to get it at all. It does seem to me to devalue, and indeed debase, the idea of getting an achievement-based mount, something that is special and required an awful lot of effort from you, simply by leaving it open so long that anyone can get it, and that's a problem for me. My name is TotalBiscuit, you are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit, and this is 1 Minute Silence, Rise and Shine. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on CynicalBrit.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. Now, I'd like to say that I've got a load of content for you today, but I really don't, honestly. So, I'm going to have to talk about something that has happened recently on the server, and this is sort of a result of the change to PvE server. That we were on Masrigo, as you may have recalled, and Masrigo decided it would want to change itself over to a PvE server. I'm sure it didn't make this decision on its own, but then again, you never know, it might have evolved sentience, formed a progressive folk band, and then decided, hey, I'm going to be a Care Bear server today. Yeah, that would be terrible, wouldn't it? But as it happens, that is not the case. What ended up occurring was that they changed it over to PvE, and then everything went to hell. However, there are other possibilities, of course. Now, we moved over to Anchorage. Yes, indeed. Anchorage is the server we are now on. And unfortunately, in the meantime, a bunch of our members actually quit. And they quit because they were simply absolutely sick of raiding ICC. Yes, indeed. I can't blame them, honestly. I cannot blame them. With the inability to pass Sindragoza because 2 of our raid members are always lagging due to visual effects in the fight and thus end up dying all the time, then, honestly, we ain't getting anywhere. And to be fair, the prospect of hard modes has got way less appealing than it did before. The reason for that, of course, is simply that it's still the same fights, it's still the same corridors, it's still the same trash, it just happens to be a little bit more challenging. Big deal. Honestly. It's like, you play the same game over and over and over again for maybe, 6, 7, 8 months? And then you decide that the way to continue to play this game and to continue to get the enjoyment that you got out of it when you first started to play was to up the difficulty a bit. Okay. That doesn't work, I'm afraid, ladies and gents, as much as I wish that it did. It does not. It will add a small, tiny pinch of spice to things, to the affairs, and then what's going to happen? Well, nothing, honestly. You're just going to get bored again. So what do you do? Well, what I would like to do, and I'm inviting those who are interested in doing this, is to abandon ICC entirely and take a few steps backwards. Now, funnily enough, we were talking about the rusted proto-drake earlier. Now, I figure that it would be nice to get the rusted proto-drake the old-fashioned way with appropriate gear. And I figure it would also be nice to get the Herald of the Titans title with the proper gear. Now, of course, you can't get it with the improper gear. That's kind of the point of the exercise. Now, that means that we're reopening Dark with the Skies for recruiting for folks who might be interested in this. I will pop up a thread on the forums on cynicalbrit.com. Anyone on the EU side is interested in coming along and going back to Ulduar, then give me a shout. Now, the intention, of course, would be to gear up with Ulduar appropriate gear, and that means no. We don't want to get anything that overgears the instance. We want to get stuff from hard mode 10s. Yeah? Specifically, we're looking at Naxxrama's 25-man gear and Ulduar 10. And that's the kind of gear we want to have. Now, after acquiring a full set of that gear, what I would like to do is go through and do the achievements with the appropriate gear. It's sad, really, that one has to resort to achievement whoring to get any kind of enjoyment out of the game again. I think the problem is more so than anything that the way the content's gone and the fact that you have to get the appropriate level of gear for, say, the new content in order to get anywhere means that a lot of people just skipped all of this stuff entirely. I mean, right now you can get tier 9 by running Utgard Keep. How ridiculous is that? If I told you back in vanilla that you'd be able to get tier 2 by running Stratum, then you'd have turned around and laughed in my face. Am I right? Indeed, more appropriately, tier 2.5, as in Anchorage 40 gear. If I told you could get that by running Stratum and Scholarmance, you'd have laughed at me. And yet, here we are. Absurd, is it not? Now, of course, the byproduct of that system is that running the latest and greatest content is the only way to do things. It is the only way. Back in TBC, it was not. Guilds were at all levels of content in TBC. I remember this, and if Blizzard wants you to forget it, which I imagine that they do, then I would suggest you call them out on that. There were guilds and all levels of content in TBC. And the reason they were at all levels of content is that they progressed through content at a pace that was suitable to them. And that's why players who are just coming into the raid game could get themselves into a guild that perhaps was not as good, perhaps was not top tier, but was raiding content that they could do. They had to do it to get the gear to raid the next tier. Ergo, all raids, and I do mean all raids, back in TBC were active. Some more so than others, but all raids were active. And right now, the other raids in Naxxrama's, outside of the environment of, hey, go kill this boss for weekly badges, here's some frost for killing Noth the Plaguebringer, they're dead. Utterly, completely dead. To everybody. Which means that ICC is, in reality, the only form of entertainment for everyone. Which is why everybody who has raided ICC far too much now is wanting to stab themselves in the eyes. I mean, let me think about the content that Dark with the Skies has not done. We're in ICC, we don't do 25-mans, we're strictly 10-man guild. So, we ignore that completely. What have we not done? Let's see. Well, we did Nax, so that's fine. We've done Saw 3 Drakes, so that's done. And we've done Malagos, so that's done. We've done Ulduar Normal, and bits of Ulduar Hard. Like, we've done Flame Leviathan with 4 towers up. We've done Hard Mode XT. Admittedly, we overgeared the hell out of it. And of course XT was nerfed, which didn't really help matters. We've done hard mode Iron Council. And we've done hard mode Thorim, and we've done hard mode Hodir. We haven't done hard mode Freya. We haven't done hard mode Mimiron. Now the reason for that is that ICC came out. Yes, indeed. ICC came out, and we decided, let's go do the new content as opposed to the old content. Wouldn't that make sense? So we abandoned the whole thing. And we never went back, and I think that it's probably about time that we did. Because we didn't do hard mode Mimiron, we didn't do hard mode Vezax, we haven't done hard mode Yorg in any form, and we certainly have not done Algernon. And we haven't done the achievements. Now, a lot of those achievements are gimmicky and pointless, but I think, to be honest, since you earn a mount from it, and it's all about really how much value you personally and your guild place on particular goals. I think the problem with our goal right now, and the goal with a lot of guilds, is that the goal is boring, and the goal, they just can't be arsed with it anymore. I mean, do you blame them? Honestly. ICC's been out now for 7 months. We're going to get Ruby Sanctum maybe in a month, which is one boss. A single boss, which will be killed in one evening. And then the hard mode will unlock. Unless they give the hard mode to us immediately. And then that will be killed the next week, and that'll be it. That's all it is. You waited 7 months for a single boss encounter. Indeed, a instance which is little more than a reskin of Obsidian Sanctum, with a little bit of Hyjal mechanics thrown in there, which no one ever liked, I might add. So if that's actually in there, which we don't know yet, because there's been no information put out as to what that... I mean, it talks about defending the Sanctum, which one must assume is waves. Whoopity-doo, waves. Yeah, waves were awesome back in the day, weren't they? No, they really, really were not. Hyjal was awful. Seriously, it was. It was absolutely appalling. So, I am not enthused by that. What I'm sort of enthused by is trying Algernon with appropriate level gear, trying Yogg-Saron +0 with appropriate level gear, and then going to do Trial of the Crusader, Hards, Trial of the Grand Crusader with appropriate level gear. Now, of course, there aren't necessarily merit badges associated with that, but being as I'm not 7 years old, I don't require merit badges for it to be a worthwhile go. It actually surprises me, more so than anything, that a lot of other guilds are not doing this right now. Going for something that is not the latest and greatest. I don't think a lot of people do require an actual physical reward to progress, and the desire to continue into the latest and greatest content and make progress there sort of overrides the willingness to do something else. There is nothing wrong with that. I don't blame anybody for not relishing the idea of going back to Ulduar. But here's the thing. I don't relish the idea of another second in ICC. I wonder how long we've been raiding ICC. How about I put together a little calculation? So, let's find out when Icecrown Citadel was released. The exact date. Gotta do a little bit of maths here. Okay, Icecrown Citadel. When did it come out? When instance, there we go. This came in patch 3.3.0 on December 8th, so wasn't really 7 months, it's closer to 6, but whatever. It's cool. So, we've had it for 6 months, about 6.5 now. And let's do the math on that. So, let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that each month had 4 weeks in it, which of course it doesn't, but whatever. It's just easier to calculate it this way. Bring up my handy-dandy, glorious calculator. Now, Dark of the Skies raids 7 hours a week. So, that's 7 times by 4, and that gives you a month. And then times that by 6. There we go. So, 168 hours, approximately, have been spent in ICC. Now, of course, bear in mind that's probably higher, because you've got a numerous number of months that have more than 4 weeks in them. And, of course, there's months which have 4.5, and things like that. So, a bare minimum of 168 hours in that damned instance. One has to wonder who would not get bored at that point. Think about that in terms of a real game. Think about it. Just consider it for a second. you have a game whereby, let's say, well, what's the best way to describe it? Diablo. There you go, Diablo. And the only part of Diablo that you are playing is a dungeon that takes a couple of hours to clear. And you're doing that over and over again, week in, week out, for 6 months. And you spend about 168, 170 hours in there. Now, there are some people that have actually done that. But the vast majority of people, I would suggest, have not. Think about it in terms of a single-player game. Think about it in terms of 50 cent Blood Under Sand. You have to pay 50 cent Blood Under Sand the first 3 hours of that game over and over and over again. And then finally, after maybe 200 hours, you unlock the ability to play them again on a slightly harder difficulty setting. I think at that point I would despise 50 cent more so than I do now. That would be rather tricky. It's pretty bad, honestly. It's pretty bad that one has to consider going back to older content in order to keep oneself enthused with the game. But if that's what is required, then that's what I want to do. Because there's a lot of cool content, and it just seems a shame to abandon it. Now, Blizzard could have done an awful lot to make sure that didn't happen, but Blizzard signed the death warrant of their older instances by moving the goalposts for everybody, by allowing you to acquire gear that is universally better. What practical reason at all is there to go into Ulduar right now? There isn't one. The only reason you will go in there at any point is if it comes up as the random weekly execution mission. Something must die. That's the only reason. Such a pathetic gimmick when you think about it. You got a lot of other games that have endgame content, perhaps not as good as WoW. WoW, let's not beat around the bush here. WoW has the best endgame content I've ever seen in any game, in terms of PvE. I mean, there are other games that have options at endgame, like PlanetSide, like EVE Online. They've got options at endgame. But the vast majority of games do not have the kind of endgame that WoW does, by a long shot. And yet, those that do have endgame don't skip massive tiers of their own content. They just don't do it. They realize it's dumb, for one thing. It also becomes a point that players are abandoning and ignoring content that they would actually like to do because they're having trouble getting a group together that are actually willing to go into content explicitly to experience it in appropriate gear and not overgear the hell out of it. And that is really sad. Honestly, it is. I would love to see, and indeed I'm going to make every possible effort to get back into my tier 8. Yes, indeed, I'll put back on my tier 8, put on my next gear, get out my Turning Tide, and say, hey, this content looks fun. We ain't done it yet. I'm bored stiff of what we've got now. Let's go visit something else. My name is TotalBiscuit. You're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I'll be right back after this, folks. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on CynicalBrit.com. You're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. So tapped out of content you will not believe it, but there is something I would like to talk about. So, I've made it very clear over the past few weeks that I hold in utter disdain, absolute disdain, the concept, the very idea of Ruby Sanctum. Now, why would I do that? I'm alright with raid content. I've got no problem with that, at all. No issue whatsoever with them bringing raid content into the game. The problem that I have, in fact, is that they think a single boss dungeon is going to keep people happy until Cataclysm launch. Now, as regards to when it's launching, we don't know, do we? We have no idea. I mean, I would personally guess November, but then again, they also said it would be out before BlizzCon, but then again, they never confirmed that. I don't believe that any site, in fact, has guessed at a release date as of yet. Well, they probably have, but I'd imagine they're not particularly correct in that assumption. Let's go and have a look, shall we? Let's go and have a look at what does Amazon have to say about Cataclysm? Do they have any date for it? No? Not by the looks of it? Available to pre-order? No idea when it's coming out. Okay, nothing whatsoever. So, let's go on the wonderful site of GameStop, who are always good at guessing randomly. Let's have a look at them, let's see what they have to say about it. Cataclysm, when does that come out? Tell me. They don't know. They don't have any idea at all. Not a clue. But it's okay, because they've got the Cataclysm official strategy guide available for pre-order. So, you can guess at maybe November. November makes sense, honestly. November is it's the premium month for selling games. That said, of course, bear in mind that expansion packs don't necessarily need to be in November. They don't. They don't need to. So, it might be earlier. So, if it's around... Have a think about it. I mean, it's in alpha now. When did the TBC alpha happen? When did the Wrath alpha happen? When was the Wrath alpha leaks? Let's go on a field trip, shall we? Let's go to Google and find out. Wrath alpha leaks. Alpha leak compendium. That was in... The last post in that was on 20th of May, 2008. Alpha leak. What do we got? Yeah, it was around May time, by the looks of it. That's from what I can tell. No, actually, earlier than that even. By the looks of it. Live alpha leaks. So the stuff around there was around the 30th of April-ish, but there were even more alpha leaks before that. But let's just assume that it was about 6 months before release, which would be correct. So, if they're in alpha right now, and we're only just starting to get alpha leaks, then we can assume that it's what? 6 months down the line, which would say that it is actually around November? Think about it. It could be the case. It's a bit distressing, isn't it? But one way or the other, we've got a long time to wait. We've got about 6 months to wait until this expansion, I would guess. And indeed, that's all anyone can do right now, guess. Now, in the meantime, we've been sitting on this raid instance for 6 months. By the time that Cataclysm comes out, ICC will be a year old. And there will have been no major raid content in between then and now. Nothing. We'll have some events, yeah? There'll be some in-game events, the stuff in 3.9, the retaking of Echo Isles. Yeah, a quest line that'll probably take less than half a day or so. In the meantime, what a raiding guild's going to do? They'll do exactly what they did before the launch of every expansion, about 6 months before each die. They will die! And it amazes me now, this being the third expansion, that Blizzard hasn't worked out a way to stop that from happening yet. Every time this has been an issue, and it's been related to a great number of things. Firstly, you get raid burnout and you get raid stagnation and raid guild death as a result of the impending change of gear level. The thought is this: why bother spending so much time in game when all of my stuff is just going to be rendered irrelevant anyway in a couple of months? So, guilds disband. What's the point of doing this raid content when it's going to be rendered utterly pointless and no one's even got to remember it in a couple of months? When those achievements and those titles and the mounts and the gear that you get are rendered utterly worthless because some dude in greens has better stats than me now. That kind of thing. The fact that that can still happen after 6 years is pretty ridiculous. One would think, one would assume that they'd have something that would fix that. One would assume that they would have another raid dungeon ready to go. Something of reasonable size, perhaps. I mean, we've been on this for 6 months. Surely 6 months is long enough for a raid instance, surely. That's a lot of time, ladies and gentlemen. 168 hours I calculated. That was a conservative estimate for a casual raiding guild. Consider how many hours have been spent by other guilds. Twice that. 3 times even. In ICC. Surely it's time for some more content, and surely that content should consist of a little bit more than a single boss. But no, apparently not. Blizzard believes otherwise. Blizzard is smoking crack, perhaps. One must assume. Here's the thing. When you get up to crunch time on your expansion and you enter alpha state, then you're going to divert an awful lot of your resources in order to make that expansion reach the release date on time, in a good state. As we saw, that didn't quite work out for Wrath, did it? No. Indeed, Wrath has been the prime example of every one of these going horribly, horrendously wrong. 6 months at the start of Wrath was how long we had to wait doing Nax Ramas. 2 months after the launch of Wrath, I quit Wrath for ages. As I recall, Blue Please went on a hiatus at that point. It would make sense, wouldn't it? Then we had Ulduar, which was really cool. Then I burned out on Ulduar because we had to wait ages for TOC. We finally got that stupid Colosseum thing. It lasted barely a week. Then the hard modes on there were killed by the top guilds fairly quickly. And then we had to wait ages for ICC as well, so we were stuck on there. It wasn't so bad, the transition between TOC and ICC. Let's go and have a look at timing, shall we? When did they come out? When did patch 3.2 come out? 3.2 release date, patch. There we go. 3.2's release date. Let's have a look. Wow Wiki. Here we go. 3.2 boy down. When did that come out? 4th of August 2009. So, August, September, October, November, December. So that was 5 months between that. It really has been about 6 months' time between each, hasn't it? When did 3.1 come out? I've got to be interested in this one now. So, 3.2 came out on the 4th of August. 3.1 came out on... When the hell did it come out? The 14th of April, as it happens. So, actually, that, more so than anything, was probably the best gap. It was the shortest. It was the least ridiculous. You're looking at the 4th to the 8th. So, 4 month. 4 month gap between Ulduar and TOC, and then about 6 months between TOC and the Ice Crown Citadel. And now we've got 6 months again before the release of what should be, one would assume, a TOC-sized instance with hard modes, which is not what we're getting. We're getting a one-boss instance with a hard mode, a single hard mode, which I would imagine will be ruffle-stomped within a very short period of time. And if it's not, bear this in mind. You know what I was saying about the problem with binary hard modes, where you've got an easy and a hard difficulty, but no normal. And you've got no little bit harder normal, or little bit easier normal, or little bit less difficult than hard, you know. Instead of having a scale of 1 to 10, you've got 0 and 1. As in, either you enjoy 0 or you enjoy 1. There is no middle ground at all. That problem is multiplied exponentially by the fact that there is only one boss in there. I can guarantee, ladies and gentlemen, that there is going to be a huge chunk of the raiding player base that is put out by that boss. And the reason they're going to be put out by it is it's going to have 2 difficulty settings, and that's it. 2. Just 2. Now, those difficulty settings are either going to be too hard for a lot of people, or too easy for a lot of people, and then some people, just a small fraction, might find them just right. Therein lies the problem, and there's the worst thing about it. In something like ICC, at least you can have variance in the difficulty of the bosses, because there are more than one of them. It's kind of important, is it not? When there's only one boss, which there is, it's a Sartharian-style encounter, it's one boss plus 3 minis. We know that the minis are not going to be a challenge, the main boss might be for a little while. You get a huge number of people that are alienated by that. This is the time for another TOC-style instance. Now, I am shocked and, quite frankly, appalled that Blizzard was able to actually take their level of laziness to an entirely new plane of existence. When TOC first came out, I called it the laziest instance ever designed. Then, of course, I retracted that and said, no, it's only the second laziest instance ever designed. The first is, of course, the Vault of Archivon. Now, it's the third most lazy instance ever designed. Because now we have the Vault of Archivon and the Ruby Sanctum. So, not only am I now going to have to, relatively speaking, say that TOC was okay. Oh, I hate doing that. I really do. Because objectively speaking, TOC was not okay. TOC was garbage. An incredibly boring instance. All of it, aside from one boss, done in the same circular arena. Relatively imaginative, but nonetheless not particularly great bosses. Not particularly challenging outside of hard mode. We saw a massive disparity between normal and hard modes. As in, you had your normal modes, and then you had your hard modes, and your hard mode Northrend beasts was so ridiculously difficult in comparison to the normal Northrend beasts. Which again is fine, hard encounters are fine, but what you have there is a situation where you alienate a huge chunk of your player base. Because you've got guys that can't get past the Northrend beasts, and then you've got guys that can do the Northrend beasts, but the huge selection of those that can't do the Northrend beasts were also the guys that stomped the main mode, the normal mode. Therein lies the issue. Such a huge leap, such a huge gap to get across for the vast majority of players. I have no problem with hard, but I do have a problem when it's just easy and hard. But even then, in comparison to this, TOC is a goddamn Eden. It is the pinnacle of raid design. It is the most imaginative, best textured, amazing, creative, wonderful, awe-inspiring instance in comparison to Ruby frickin' Sanctum. And for God's sake, you just have a look at the damn thing. It's even used the same terrain in many areas as Obsidian Sanctum. It uses models that are 5 to 6 years old. No new models of any description that I can tell. Even the main dragon dude is just a reskinned dragon. The dragon that we have seen for, oh yes, how long would that be? Oh yes, 6 years. Same drakes, same chromatic guards, same drakenkin bastards, same whelps. All of them. This is what Blizzard after 6 months has come up with. You should be as appalled as I am at that, honestly. Now, this causes the death of so many guilds, and they must realise that it causes a huge drop in subscription. This is what I don't get. There is a monetary reason to provide more raid content right now. A huge monetary incentive for Blizzard. And money, money, money surely is what the business is all about. And do you blame them for that? No, of course not. They're a business. That's fine. Activision surely must be saying, guys, your subs are dropping by, 5-6 figures here on a weekly basis. Surely you're going to do something about it, right? Yeah, sure, we've got this great instance. What is it? The Ruby Sanctum. How many bosses has it got? 1. 6 months, 1 boss. It's appalling. And if they have diverted too many resources to developing Cataclysm, then may I make a small suggestion? Based on the fact that Blizzard are potentially the most well-funded development studio on the planet, I don't think I'd be going out of bounds to suggest that. Bearing in mind, of course, that Blizzard have, almost 2 decades, in fact, possibly 2 decades of development experience. Bearing all that in mind, may I make a small suggestion? And also, of course, bearing in mind the financial state and the money flowing in from subscriptions on a monthly basis, may I make a small suggestion? Hire more resources! My name is TotalBiscuit, you're listening to Blue Please, here on cynicalbrit.com. I'll be right back after the break to take your emails, ladies and gents, so drop them into me, murloc@gmail.com, that is the murloc@gmail.com. Throw some emails at me, we'll do some illusion of choice, whatever, we'll get the show over with. Because I've got nothing else to say. So if you guys want to suggest some stuff, then by all means. In the meantime, we'll play some Night Rage. This is Descent into Chaos. Enjoy. You are listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on cynicalbrit.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you listen to Blue Please. You're on cynicalbrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. Like I say, I'm out of content, so I'm going to have a look in the mailbox and see what we've got. We've got many things. You can email them into themurloc@gmail.com. Over the course of the week, if you listen to the podcast, by all means, I like your content. Themurloc@gmail.com. I'd love to say that as a podcast host, I'm able to come up with content out of thin air, but honestly, I'm really not. Blue Please has always been a bit of a stream of consciousness show, and some things that I think about over the course of the week become topics on the show. When I'm not playing WoW, because I don't really have a functional guild, it's a little bit difficult to think about it in general. When there's nothing coming out on MMO Champion that's worth having a look at, there's, again, nothing I can really come up with. That said, hey, there you go. Okay, here's an email coming in, and I like the look of it. I like the cut of its jib, per se. So let's get it started. Hi there, RTB. I'd like to hear your thoughts on a somewhat different form of entitlement. Apart from one relating to in-game content, on which you poured out quite a lot of bile, almost felt the entirety of Wrath of the Lich King. I, for one, think that the monthly subscription fee does entitle the player to some things, though these things do not relate to in-game content, but the infrastructure surrounding the game experience. For my money, I expect Blizzard to provide me with the following. Reliable, fast, i.e. non-lagging service with a maximum amount of uptime, and maybe even some form of population management or control. Good technical and in-game support, again, reliable and fast, and a safe and uncomplicated account system. We all know that griefers, hackers, keyloggers, and all the other arseholes take their toll on this, but that is to be expected, and one should think that Blizz tried to get ready for it. Do you think Blizz is doing enough to ensure a working infrastructure? And given your stance on promoting authenticators, what would be your reaction to people saying that it is part of Blizzard's customer service to provide maximum safety for accounts? And if authenticators are the only way that they should be providing to players instead of being used to generate cash, then surely they should be giving them out themselves. Well, that is an interesting idea, is it not? Well, first things first, we'll take on the first one. Is it entitled to suggest that you, as a subscriber, should be given a service that is, for the most part, reliable and high performance? The answer is yes, without a shadow of a doubt. That is the duty of Blizzard, to provide you with such a service. Now, of course, there will be inconsistencies with that service. That's the nature of such a large server-based operation. I mean, any website has downtime. Any website has maintenance. Any service of this size has issues that will crop up that are not necessarily foreseen and will take a little bit of time to deal with. That said, can you honestly say that Blizzard's service overall has been to the level of quality that you would expect? And a lot of the time, I would say no. I mean, one of the things that I would expect for my subscription fee, for instance, is enough content to justify. For instance, let's think about how much have we paid so far for ICC. Bear in mind, that was the last piece of content to come out. Now, one can also make the argument, of course, and they will be entirely correct in doing this, that you don't just pay for that. You pay for other things, like, of course, the upkeep of the servers and the staff and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I've paid £54 for the benefit of playing ICC, and I'm not entirely sure that I've gotten my money's worth. I believe I mentioned this last week. When it comes to the level of service, most of the time it's pretty good. But yes, you are entitled, indeed under the law, certainly in the UK, under the Supply of Goods and Services Act, as I recall correctly, a certain default, reasonable level of service. And if you do not get that, then yes, you are absolutely entitled to that, and it is not unreasonable to say that you are. It is not overly greedy to suggest that your money should buy you a good service, without a doubt. Well, what about the rest of that email? What about that other part? Well, the idea of providing authenticators as standard. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? But just how far do you go with that? Therein lies the problem. When you open that gate, when do you get to close it? And indeed, can you ever close it? It's kind of a Pandora's box, isn't it? It's the real definition of a slippery slope. If you cave to the demand of, say, free authenticators. Now, there are already free authenticators, and there are authenticators which are absurdly cheap. You've got things available on almost every modern mobile device. You've got authenticators also available, of course, via the web store. So, they are providing free authenticators, just not the physical products, which, of course, need to be stored, which need to be shipped, which need to be manufactured. They are physical items. They require a person, an actual real-life person, to put it in the envelope and post it to you, and process your order. The big e-commerce thing. They require an infrastructure for that. It has to be staffed, and of course, again, wholesale manufacturing of these damn things. It is not unreasonable to suggest that these things should cost money, but I think one should then ask the question, if you make these things available, and if you then make the mobile version available for free or next to nothing, have you fulfilled your duty to provide a security option for your customers? In my opinion, yes. It would be nice, and indeed it would, for the most part, eliminate the vast majority of gold selling and nonsense overnight. It would eliminate hacking overnight. Of course, it would still happen to a very small degree. The man-in-the-middle attacks can happen, but they are so uncommon. They're way more difficult to pull off, and indeed very situational as to when you can do them. You can't simply just keylog someone and then come back later and steal their account. It doesn't work like that. It's a lot more difficult. At what point? I mean, do you expect Blizzard to, say, secure your house now? What happens if your authenticator gets stolen? Is it Blizzard's responsibility to deal with that? What about if you don't have an authenticator, but you leave your password lying around on a piece of notepaper, on a post-it, and someone takes it? Or you tell someone it, it slips out in conversation, or you share your account with people, and then it ends up getting hacked or whatever. What responsibility does Blizzard have at that point? How much should they secure your operating system? I mean, think about other things. Think about your internet service provider. Is it the ISP's responsibility to stop you from getting hacked? No, it's not, is it? Is it the ISP's requirement, or indeed, is it the bank's requirement to secure your account beyond a reasonable point? And the answer is, of course, no, it's not. They are upheld to certain standards, which are the same standards, I might add, that Blizzard adhere to. Admittedly, they're not as stringent, because we're talking about a service here. There is a reasonable expectation of security on your account. For instance, you do not expect to have your bank details or any of your personal information taken from your WoW account by hackers. That is the kind of thing that Blizzard is responsible for and would be liable for, indeed, if they did not provide suitable security for that. But if you leave all of your information lying around, or if you give it to someone and then some of your stuff gets taken, is that really the fault of the company in question? Well, it's not really, is it? Let's think about it. It's hard to draw an analogy. Right? You can't really accurately say, oh, well, what's the bank's responsibility? A bank's a financial institution, for God's sake. You can ruin your life as opposed to ruining your virtual character and maybe having your retarded horse stolen. Big deal. But one way or the other, the authenticators have been made available as an additional level of security and are available on a number of different mobile devices as well as in a convenient key fob. Should they be given away for free? I don't think that expectation should really be leveled at Blizzard, honestly. I don't think that's their responsibility. It is your responsibility to keep your account secure to the best of your ability. That's not to say that zero-day exploits don't happen. That's not to say that some things can slip through the net, but let's be honest here. Let's be completely and totally honest. The same kind of people that get themselves hacked repeatedly are the same kind of people that don't have a firewall, that don't have up-to-date antivirus, that still use Internet Explorer 6, that don't have an up-to-date copy of Windows because they probably downloaded it from Pirate Bay years ago and never bothered to get a real, genuine copy that can actually be updated correctly. They're on old OSs. They have machines full of spyware. For whatever reason. Porn sites. Illegal download sites. Keyloggers hidden into key generators that they've downloaded from the Pirate Bay or whatever. All sorts of things. Newsgroup uploads, all these kind of things. All these different possibilities for getting nasty, unpleasant keyloggers. I'm not saying that everyone who's ever got hacked ever is that person. Absolutely not. There are plenty of people who have been hacked outside of their knowledge. They've taken reasonable precautions and it's happened anyway. But let's be honest here. The same kind of people that get hacked repeatedly are, generally speaking, the same kind of people that don't take care of themselves and don't take care of their security. And do you really think they're going to bother with an authenticator? Even if it's given to them for free? Should you really hold the hand of such people? Some of the security of your account is your own responsibility. You are entitled to be protected to a reasonable degree, and indeed, you are entitled to additional protection if you so choose to acquire it. But I don't believe you're entitled to free stuff. I think that goes beyond that. Let's be honest. Okay, let's go and have another look. Another email here from Chris Howard. With the Ruby Sanctum turning out to be such a letdown in its design, its looks, and its content, do you think that the majority of subscribers to WoW turns out with a bad reputation and everyone dislikes it? What? That doesn't even make any sense. Let's try and decipher this. I'll get the scientist team out here right now. So, anyone speak Swahili? Because that's what it looks like. Right, okay. I think I've deciphered this. So, I think what he's saying is that Ruby Sanctum might give WoW a bad reputation, and then Blizzard might actively take the hint and try and create some new and exciting instances, or just continue with the same boring stuff that churned out for over a year. I think they're already doing that, but the problem is they're doing it in Cataclysm and not now, and they're bleeding and hemorrhaging subscribers from every possible orifice in order to do that. They're hemorrhaging resources in order to make it happen. I mean, look at how slow the content development's been lately. And look at what they have to offer. I mean, all you've seen is expansion shots. Ruby Sanctum doesn't have a single new art asset in it, to my knowledge. I would imagine that the majority of the gear in Ruby Sanctum is recolors and reskins, as opposed to brand new stuff. It's not a new tier of content. It is a small instance. It is approximately the same size as Obsidian Sanctum, because it's the same goddamn map. There is different terrain on it, things have been moved around a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's Obsidian Sanctum with a new coat of paint. That indicates to me that after ICC was done, their major development team went off to go and deal with Cataclysm. And I would imagine that ICC beforehand was being dealt with by a semi-skeleton crew. So, I don't think we're ever going to get anything interesting until Cataclysm comes out. And of course, Blizzard is hoping that Cataclysm will make us forget all about this nonsense. Will it? Well, maybe. Possibly. It might. It might have that effect, I suppose. But will it? We don't really know, do we? We have to make an assumption, and indeed we have to make a kind of a desperate hope that Cataclysm is going to be the saviour of World of Warcraft. Blizzard have a good track record, but I'm sorry, Wrath of the Lich King has sullied it quite significantly. And it does take an awful lot of effort to get that consumer goodwill back. I mean, think of the number of things that have infuriated us. The constant nerfs, the 6 months of garbage content at the start of this expansion. The lackluster Tier 9. Utter lackluster content right there. The repeated ICC nonsense. The fact that ICC's been sticking around for 6 months and we've got no other option. The fact that we've reverted back to binary hard modes when it was quite clearly shown that non-binary hard modes were the best option in Ulduar. Indeed, Ulduar stands out as by far the best instance that Blizzard has put out. I would go as far as to say ever. Honestly, I think it is better than pretty much everything else. I think AQ40s may be pretty hot on its heels there. Maybe some of the TBC content. Sunwell, for instance. But Ulduar's pretty damn good. That was the height of Wrath, if you can call it a height. I mean, it's all relative, let's be honest. And they're hoping that we forget about all of that. They hope that we forget about the casual appeasement. The entitled casuals getting away every time. The repeated caving in of Blizzard to the will of bad players. I mean, for God's sake, the option... I say option, it's not really a choice, as I've explained in previous shows. That frickin' buff Like, hey, yeah, let's nerf the content that not everyone's finished yet. But we'll do it in the form of a buff, which you can turn off, which no one will actually turn off because you've given us literally no reason to. There's not even an achievement for it. There's not even a feat of strength. There's not even a pat on the head for, hey, you did this content when it was actually hard and not completely nerfed into the ground. And they're hoping that Cataclysm makes us forget all of that. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to have to be a damn sight better than what we have right now. It's going to have to be the best expansion that they've ever put out. It's going to have to blow TBC out of the water to make me forget about this nonsense. These are the Dark Ages, ladies and gentlemen. Cataclysm is their supposed renaissance, and my god, I hope they pull it off. Because otherwise, I guess I'm going back to DDO and Bestio. They're both kind of fun, aren't they? My name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. We have played no power metal today, and I think, quite frankly, that could be considered, by many, to be a disgrace. I'm going to fix that right now. Nocturnal Rights, ladies and gentlemen, this is end of our rope. I'll be right back after this with the illusion of choice. Yes, indeed. Enjoy.
You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on CynicalBrit.com.
Yes, indeed, folks, this is Blue Please on CynicalBrit.com. This is the illusion of choice. Yes, quite. Right, okay. Let's have a look in the mailbox, see what we find. If there's anything good, I shall be surprised. Interesting. Right, that's all mage stuff. I suppose I can answer a mage question, yes. I am the Sage Mage, the Sage of Mages. I shall answer all your mage-related questions, and the answers will probably be wrong, but I don't care! You'll believe it anyway! Right, here we go. Greetings, host of shows! Sorry if this is a little early. I'm nothing a druid. I need to focus. No, you don't. It's a druid. I recently got my Troll Mage up to 80, got my Stupidity Epics maxed out, and everything all the way to the recommended spec on EJ. The one thing I couldn't figure out is what to use as a rotation. EJ was being useless about it. MMO Champion is useless about it. Yes, indeed, the MMO Champions forums are not exactly the best. Let me put it that way. The best are actually the Something Awful forums, I might point out. They are the best WoW forum on the planet. FYI. No, really, they are. They have the best info. They have the best community. You'll get laughed out of there if you do anything stupid. That's always nice, too. Now, the one I've gone with at the moment is Arcane Blast 4, Arcane Missiles Repeat, but I couldn't help but notice that even on low-level gear, I could do 15k Arcane Blast crits. The bad part being the mana efficiency. My question is, why hasn't Blizzard come up with some form of making Arcane Blast slightly more mana efficient? They have. That's the problem. You're not doing it right. It's as simple as that. Right, okay. Here's what you're doing wrong. You don't spam Arcane Blast up to 4. Indeed, you don't spam Arcane Blast up to 4, and then expect to be able to maintain your mana after doing 1, 2, 3, 4 Arcane Missiles. 1, 2, 3, 4 Arcane Missiles. One thing, that isn't the best rotation. Damage-wise, it's not. Secondly, you're doing it wrong. It's not the most mana-efficient rotation either. Here's how you do it. This goes for any budding Arcane Mage. This is how you do it. The Arcane rotation is not set in stone. Indeed, it is triggered on a number of conditions, and it varies on that basis. That means you actually have to pay attention. So you hit Arcane Blast, and you keep hitting Arcane Blast until you get the Missile Barrage proc. At which point, you hit the Missile Barrage button. That does not mean you keep spamming Arcane Blast until you get to 4. No, you don't. You don't do it. As soon as you get it, whether it be on 1 or 4, you press that button. Straight away. And then, as the last missile flies, as the last one flies, you press Arcane Barrage. And then, after you've fired that, you start again. If you want to get proper DPS, that's how you do it. And if any of you think, oh, Arcane Barrage, you're retarded, blah, 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 nobody uses that. No, you're stupid, and you're a bad mage if you don't use it. Anyone that uses the rotation, 1, 2, 3, 4, Arcane Missiles, 1, 2, 3, 4, Arcane Missiles. Anyone that puts forward the joke that Arcane Mages are simply 2 buttons, you are a terrible Arcane Mage, and I would kick your ass on the meters, that I can guarantee. The reason that you use Arcane Barrage, you get a big extra DPS, and because you fire it and have it land at exactly the same time, due to the travel time of an Arcane Missile, is you also get the damage bonus. It is known colloquially amongst those mages that know what they're doing as the Arcane Shatter Combo, because it's the same principle as the Shatter Combo. Those of you who don't know what the Shadow Combo used to be, the Shatter Combo used to be you freeze an enemy with Frostbite, then you cast your Frostbolt, and as the Frostbolt is flying, you press Ice Lance. Shatter Combo. There you go. That means that both of those attacks actually got the crit bonus. Works the same way with Arcane. Yes, it does. If you don't think so, go try it. It takes some timing. You have to make sure that you time it at the right time. Sometimes it's actually worth casting it just before the last one. One way or the other, if you cast it at the right time, then you will get the damage bonus. That's the important thing. And that's how you do it. That's how you get good DPS as Arcane, and that's the rotation. And if you are not doing it that way, then you're doing it wrong. Simple as that. There you go. Mage question answered. Do I have any other illusions of choice? Let's go and have a look at the mailbag. Go right the way back here. Usually I have quite a few in reserve. That's always nice. Let's have a look. Might be all out, actually. Might be some from last week. We can have a look for those. And if not, then we shall do some shout-outs and end the show. Doesn't sound like a good idea. Since we are actually on the half an hour mark. We've been going for an hour and a half. That's pretty good. Here's one. Let's try this one. Okay, am I interested in that? Yeah, why not? Let's read that one. This one comes in from Aaron Mitchell, and it says this. Hey DB, Fernurian, whatever the hell that is, of Frostmourne Oceanic here, with an observation on Cataclysm World PvP. I've been digging through the huge pile of screenshots and info from the Cataclysm Alpha on MMO Champion, and I've noticed an interesting change. In many zones, the Alliance and Horde each have a fortified settlement in close proximity to each other. The terrain between each settlement is arranged in such a way that should a random world PvP battle break out, the landscape could be used strategically to either attack or defend, much like that of an open world battleground. Such layouts appear in South Barrens, Western Plaguelands, and Blasted Lands, to name but a few. It seems to me that Blizzard is looking to encourage world PvP using the old Tarren Mill vs South Shore scenario. Of course, if there's no reward or incentive for players to participate, then this idea is doomed to fail before it even begins. What do you think about this? Well, first things first. Tarren Mill and South Shore actually ended up dying when incentives were put in place. Tarren Mill and South Shore was a big deal before honor points were brought in. This is way back in the day. I know because I fought in it. I fought in the days when Tarren Mill and South Shore was a big deal, and yet, honestly, you do not, in fact, get anything from it whatsoever. Then they put things in, and it was all good. So, honestly, one has to wonder whether or not people would participate in World PvP. It's possible. But I do not expect Blizzard not to put incentives in, honestly. They should do it. If they've got any sense, they should do it. I'd participate in it anyway, but I don't know for how long. If there were incentives, then yes, absolutely. Now, it's interesting that you do note that the terrain has been designed that way. I think that it is a mistake, honestly, of the previous expansion, that more zones were not designed in that fashion. You had Alliance and Horde really, really far away from each other. And for God's sake, in Icecrown, you had them on goddamn boats that were effectively unassailable. I mean, think about it. It's not a very good idea, is it? On PvP servers, I would prefer to be in close proximity, and I would prefer there to be actual fighting. And if there isn't any of that, then one has to wonder why I'm on a PvP server to begin with. Simple as that. I think we're done, ladies and gents. My name's been TotalBiscuit. You've been listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I'll be doing a Shoutcraft tomorrow, which hopefully will be on Ustream or Justin TV, but I don't know because I'm still trying to sort things out for it. One way or the other, just keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on my Twitter account, twitter.com/TotalBiscuit. That will keep you abreast of the situation, and of course, that is at 5 p.m. British Standard Time. That's 12 p.m. EST on wherever the hell I decide to put it, or wherever the hell I can actually get it to work. Right, okay, shout-out time, ladies and gents. Email them in, totalbiscuit@gmail.com, murloc@gmail.com, the murloc@cynicalbrit.com, whatever the hell you please, I don't care. Also, you can send them over Twitter, or over the IRC chat, or over the web chat. Yes, it's wonderful. You can send a carrier pigeon if you like, but I can't guarantee that I will be able to broadcast the shout-out for you sent by carrier pigeon until next week. That's just the way of it, I'm afraid. I'm not capable of providing that service. Someone also asked, are there any Blue Please t-shirts coming out soon? Yes, we're working on it. Right, okay, well, I'll open up with the shout-outs to those on the video wall right now. Mini F, who is looking like he's going to bomb some kind of Western nation. Cordain, who, with that, what appears to be some kind of fantastic American flag in the background, is going to stop him from doing so. Eldra Mika is, well, just looking a little bit miserable, really. Cheer up, old bud, cheer up. Incubus is wearing what appears to be some kind of Admiralty's hat, or perhaps a sailor's hat. One might question his particular orientation, perhaps. Valdro is wearing no shirt and is also male, and his hair is apparently a bird, therefore my argument is invalid. I can't even read the name of that. The Warden! Yes, brightening up the channel with the fairer sex. Always good to have that. And Hope and Despair, who I believe is, in fact, the boyfriend, wife, spouse, who cares? I'm not here to judge your relationship. It's entirely possible of the only current female in the channel. We actually had 2 last week, so that was potentially a record on the video wall. Very disappointing, but there we go. Pedron, the totem black guy, making us look all the more tolerant and respectable as always. And I have got to say this, just for the sake of your heart, not going out before the age of 30, I would strongly suggest that you stay the hell off the Red Bull. Honestly. You must be caffeinated to all hell. I would suggest, in fact, that drinking your blood would cause a horrendous caffeine high. That would be pretty horrendous. Horrendous, horrendous, horrendous. I like that word. Lavernius, our token Easterner, apparently, by the looks of it. Either that or he's got a lampshade on his head. One of these is possible. An Evil McBad guy with a... He's been putting up a bunch of notices, a bunch of important public service announcements over the course of this broadcast. Disregard self-respect. Acquire that retarded horse. It's like the worst possible fortune cookie. Right, ladies and gents, let's go to the mailbag and see what we've got. Shout out to the Pernicious... Why do you have to start me off with something like that? Why couldn't you start me off with something easy like the Ponzor Guild? The Pernicious Guild! Or Lightning Hoof... Oh, God, Pernicious. You pretentious bastards. You want, say, not 1 but 2 Jawmanga worms dropping, and I'm not sure if I can actually provide that for him. It's too much effort.
Not 1, but 2 Jawmanga worms.
Get a worms drop in for them, calling in it for the Ruby Sanctum. Yeah, it's terrible. Shout out to Angelo for spoiling, and shout out to you for living in the past. That's from Onin. Yes, indeed, living in the past is good. The present is boring. I don't want it. Take it away. Not impressive at all. What else have we got? Let's have a look at the mailbag. People are trying to impress me in the video wall. I'm not impressed. Indeed. We have a robot, and Lavanius is still wearing that freaking thing. Perhaps Lavanius is in fact Raiden. Impossible. Shout out to Oklahomans who got their power knocked out from a 90-mile-per-hour wind yesterday morning. That's from Sompwork. And you have a shout out to everyone from Nerdtacular last weekend. Absolute blast. That's from Anger Fork. It's a very angry fork. Unsurprisingly. Getting a shout out to my best mate Kickshaman, who so far has completely owned me in StarCraft 2. Cheers to me. That's from Dr. Teeth, who I believe was in the channel at some point. He was wearing some kind of coloured dreadlocks. Can I get a shout-out to everyone in Crimson Shadow, and good luck in the raids this week. Also a shout-out to the Aussies who stay up and listen to the host of shows. You're all crazy, just FYI. Why would you do something that ridiculous? Doing an awesome job. Keep it up. That's from Chris Howard. What else have we got in the mailbag? Oh, Lord, that's a lot of chat messages. Let's see if we can get through all of them. A shout-out to my arena partner, Om Nom 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 Nomph. That's a terrible name. That's from Dizers. A shout out to Saracen for being insanely tired and staying up about 30 hours now. Go to bed, you foolish mortal. Also, Valdro, I know it's a vent up there. There may be a facehugger or perhaps ceiling cat. Just be aware of that. And no, I'm not impressed by the reflective shades at all. Can I get a shout-out to the Guild Knights of the Round on Alderman US? That's from Sean Cast. A shout-out to Prestige on Steam Wheel Cartel from Ray. On the EU side, a shout-out for you for the way you handled my email. Really thought it was well done. That's from someone whose name I do not want to give out. And a shout-out to Sublime for whipping on Professor. Kinky. Whipping on Professor Putricide. 25 men. 25 men whipping Professor This is like some kind of bad porno. Let's not go anywhere near that with a 10-foot barge pole. Yeah. You a bunch of freaks. A shout out to... A shout out to the Guild Fight Academy. Terrible name, I know, well, at least to admit. For downing Festival last week and making good progress on Rotface. That's from Serethis of Hat Bar. Steam Weedle Cartel EU. Yes, indeed. Good stuff. Hat Bar. We should start a hat bar, whereby the only way you can actually get to the hat bar and drink the delicious drinks is, in fact, to wear a selection of crazy hats, perhaps more than one at a time. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I think we're done, ladies and gents. My name has been TotalBiscuit. You'll be listening to Blue Please. As always, thank you very much for listening to the show. Check out the rest of the shows on cynicalbrit.com, and I shall see you tomorrow for some shoutcraft. Good stuff. I'm done, ladies and gents. I'm going to play us out with something neat, something awesome. That's always the way to do it. Yeah, why not? Haven't played this one in absolutely ages. It's probably about time that we fix that. Good night.
You have been listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please, WoW's #1 shock-jock show, only on cynicalbrit.com. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment on the Cynical Brit website or write a review of the show on iTunes. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.